But a recent FBI sting reminds us of the horrifying reality that is human trafficking here in the U.S., that it is a real and widespread problem here.
Clearwater police anticipate an uptick in human trafficking during the week of the Republican National Convention in Tampa, not because it's a political event, but because authorities say any large event is prone to an increase in that kind of activity. That crime involves moving people into our area, forcing them to sell sex.
Human trafficking defines as a recruitment, transportation, transfer, or harboring of a person, such as forced abduction, fraud, or coercion for an improper purpose, including forced labor or sexual abuse. In simpler words, human trafficking is the illegal exploitation of a person. It can occur in every part of the world, and it can happen to any person. Male, female, Christian, Jewish, Black, Latina, doesn't matter. In some cases, girls have been as young as 9 or 10 years old in the sex trafficking game. Trafficking does not discriminate. Human sex trafficking can be caused by many things. In some cases, a woman can be in a relationship where she's promised the world and more, and her partner turns on her, and they abuse the trust that was established. Also, in some cases, people prey on the young children who are abused or have nowhere else to go and pimp them out. Human trafficking can somewhat be a serious case of Stockholm Syndrome.
Tonight, an inside look at human trafficking. It's an issue we often associate with immigrants in foreign countries, but it's happening to young girls right here in Chicago.
It's just easier, right? The price of getting a slave, if you will, is almost nothing.
Nothing.
And then the ability to connect with people who want to exploit the girls and get access to girls is so easy with the internet today.
And then also to sell them on the internet is very easy as well. You know, and so that is a huge problem.
Where's this happening?
Where?
Yeah.
In this country?
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Really?
Yes.
That's
It's
no
happening right
exaggeration.
here in Atlanta, California. I mean, we have some of the 3 hotspots, San Francisco, San Diego, and Los Angeles.
In America, there are over thousands of nonprofit organizations that protect and defend trafficked women. In Chicago alone, there are over 20 organizations that advocate for sex-trafficked women. A main organization in Chicago, the Chicago Alliance Against Sex Exploitation, advocates for legislative and policy reforms that will increase legal and social accountability for perpetrators of harm, especially sex traffickers, pimps, and people who buy sex, and those who commit sexual assault.
Hello, I'm Rachel Derschlag, and I am the founder of the Chicago Alliance Against Sexual Exploitation. I learned about human trafficking when I saw a movie in 2003 at a film festival, and that film so moved me that I decided to get involved in Chicago, and so I founded CASE. And CASE takes a unique perspective in addressing sexual exploitation. It's that we look at the root cause, which are the pimps, traffickers, and johns who profit from the existence of the sex trade. Because we know that as long as there are men who are willing to open their pocketbooks to pay for sexual services, those who are most marginalized will be recruited by pimps and traffickers, harmed in the sex trade, all for the sexual gratification of johns.
Human sex trafficking has often been referred to as modern-day slavery. Forms of slavery existed before the 1400s, when it marked the start of the European slave trading in Africa, with the Portuguese transporting people from Africa to Portugal and using them as slaves. In 1956, the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act was initiated, which prosecutes the third parties involved in trafficking. These activities included running brothels, living on earnings from sex work, capturing and imprisoning people into prostitution. It can be argued, however, that this act failed to protect the women who may have been forced into prostitution. In 2008, a case emerged where several migrants were found to be illegally smuggled into Thailand by traffickers. 57 of these migrants suffocated to death while being transported after being confined in a seafood container where the air conditioning system malfunctioned. President Obama declared January to be Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and January 11, 2011 was named National Human Trafficking Awareness Day. On this day, various individuals as well as group events took place in the attempt to increase awareness about human trafficking among the general public. The Alliance to End Trafficking and Anti-Trafficking Coalition began a campaign to ask the government to take a serious look at trafficking by renewing the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. Ghana is another source, transit, and destination country for men, women, and children subjected to forced labor and sex trafficking. Child prostitution is prevalent in the Volta region and is growing in the oil-producing western regions. Every day, women are being abused by traffickers. Some women don't recover from the trauma, but some women do and advocate for the ones still being trafficked. Juliana Dagbazi did this. Juliana Dagbazi was a victim of the fetish slavery in Ghana for 17 years. She escaped at the age of 23. Juliana was 7 years old when her parents took her from her home to a shrine to pay pence to the gods because it was alleged that her grandfather had stolen $2. Her parents had given her sister to a shrine 600 miles away from their home as a pence, but after her untimely death, Juliana was chosen to replace her. Juliana escaped successfully with her 2 babies, both the result of being raped, at the age of 23 and made it to freedom. There are more women who remain in the shrine who need help. No one is going to represent them better than someone who has been in the shrine and has gone through the pain. Against all the odds, I have decided to take the responsibility of addressing the issue and have been doing so ever since. She has dedicated her life to freeing other enslaved young girls, women, and children. Juliana has launched a campaign to eradicate these harmful traditional practices and has begun legislation to outlaw these injustices plaguing the female children and women of her country. She returns frequently to the fetish shrines to speak boldly to the priests about her campaign and to the other female slaves about their rights to freedom from superstitious beliefs. Juliana advocates for the rights of women and children in religious bondages across Ghana, educating and assuring the unfoldment of the social, economic, and cultural rights of women. Due to her efforts, she has freed more than 1,000 slaves from 15 shrines throughout the upper region of Ghana.